Welcome back, dear friends, to another exciting episode of the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. Dear friends, we're on part 13, and tonight we will be continuing our study of the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. And without any further ado, we'll have our opening prayer. Thank you so much. Blessed is the spot and the house and the place, and the city and the heart and the mountain, and the refuge and the cave and the valley and the land, and the sea and the island and the meadow, where mention of God hath been made, and his praise glorified. Bahá'u'lláh.
Okay, we did that one, yes.
And for a factoid for all my dear friends who studied the Advent of Divine Justice with us, that is the only prayer in the Advent of Divine Justice. So that's on paragraph 114. So there you go, because that's the section, paragraph where he was quoting Baha'u'lláh. It was a very long paragraph quoting Baha'u'lláh, and in that paragraph, he actually has that prayer. So it's the only, per se, prayer in the Advent of Divine Justice. Is blessed is the spot. So there you go. Fun factoid, as they say. So, dear friends, we're getting back into it. The study of the Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. Okay, let me share my screen with you. Okay, we're paragraph 36, okay? This is the World Order of Baha'u'lláh, and if you have not gotten your copy yet, do so. There you go, okay? And you can always find it online, the World Order of Baha'u'lláh. We are studying the Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh, and with tonight, we're going to be covering paragraphs 36 through 41. And if you're like, Ehsan, which is paragraph 36 start? It's on page 112. It starts, dearly beloved friends. Okay, dearly beloved friends. Okay, so tonight the themes that we're going to be addressing are the station of divinity of a manifestation of God. This is a huge theme. And remember why the beloved guardian wrote this: to bring out those fundamental truths of the revelation. What does the faith stand for? So far, what have we covered? Okay, as they say, a recap. We've already covered quite a lot of things up to so far paragraph 36, right? We've covered up the station of the Blessed Bab, the station of His Holiness Baha'u'lláh, and the station of Abdul Baha. And now we're getting into the station of the manifestations of God. Okay, so now this is where we are, the station of the manifestations of God themselves, as well as the knowledge of God. Oh, my chubby finger. Okay, that would. Someone wanted to come enter the room and accidentally hit ban, or what does it say, remove, and it's my chubby finger accidentally hit the wrong one. Okay, so there we are. These are the themes that we're going to be covering tonight. Station of the divinity of the manifestation of God, as well as the knowledge of God. Okay, so without any further ado, let's read these paragraphs so we have hear the words of the beloved guardian, and then we can digest it even deeper. Okay, so our first paragraph is paragraph 36. It's not too long. Okay, I'm going to let our dear Marianne, with a great voice, read this paragraph for us. Thank you so much, Miss Marianne.
All right, one moment.
Of course, of course.
The Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh, paragraphs under study, paragraph 36. Dearly beloved friends, enough has been said and the quoted excerpts from the writings of the Bab, of Baha'u'lláh, and of Abdu'l-Baha are sufficiently numerous and varied to convince the conscientious reader of the sublimity of this unique cycle in the world's religious history. It would be utterly impossible to over-exaggerate its significance or to overrate the influence it has exerted, and which it must increasingly exert as its great system unfolds itself amidst the welter of a collapsing civilization.
Beautifully read. Thank you. So here now the the beloved guardian is saying, enough has been said from the writings of the Bab, Baha'u'lláh, Abdu'l-Baha at this current time to say it would be impossible to exaggerate its significance or overrate the influence it has exerted. So what are we talking about? The revelation of Baha'u'lláh. It's impossible to overrate the significance of this revelation of Baha'u'lláh. Its great system unfolding itself amidst the welter of a collapsing civilization. So beautifully read, Miss Marianne. Now I'll read the next one. This is a longer paragraph, so I don't want to tire you out. Okay, so I'll read this one for you guys. Here we go. To whoever may read these pages, a word of warning seems, however, advisable before I proceed further with the development of my argument. Let no one meditating in the light of the aforequoted passages on the nature of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh mistake its character or misconstrue the intent of its author. The divinity attributed to so great a being and the complete incarnation of the names and attributes of God in so exalted a person should, under no circumstances, be misconceived or misinterpreted. The human temple that has been made the vehicle of so overpowering a revelation must, if we be faithful to the tenets of our faith, ever remain entirely distinguished from that innermost spirit of spirits and eternal essence of essences. That invisible yet rational God who, however much we extol the divinity of his manifestations on earth, can in no wise incarnate his infinite, his unknowable, his incorruptible, and all-embracing reality in the concrete and limited frame of a mortal being. Indeed, the God who could so incarnate his own reality would, in the light of the teachings of Baha'u'lláh, cease immediately to be God. So crude and fantastic a theory of divine incarnation is as removed from and incompatible with the essentials of Baha'i belief as are the no less inadmissible pantheistic and anthropomorphic conceptions of God, both of which the utterances of Baha'u'lláh emphatically repudiate and the fallacy of which they expose. So we're going to go much more in depth on this paragraph coming up. So let's get through these. Next paragraph, dear friends, paragraph 38, okay? Paragraph 38. Dear Valerie, if you could so kindly read this one.
He who in unnumbered passages claimed his utterance to be the voice of divinity, the call of God himself, thus solemnly affirms in the Kitab-i-Iqan, to every discerning and illumined heart, it is evident that God, the unknowable essence, the divine being, is immeasurably exalted beyond every human attribute, such as corporeal existence, ascent and descent, egress and regress. He is and hath ever been veiled in the ancient eternity of his essence, and will remain in his reality, everlastingly hidden from the sight of men. He standeth exalted beyond and above all separation and union, all proximity and remoteness. God was alone. There was none else beside him, is a sure testimony of this truth.
Excellently read. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So there's paragraph 38. And moving to paragraph 39. All right. Let's have Auntie Mefesh. Could you read this one?
Of course, Ehsan Jan.
Thank you so much.
From time immemorial, Baha'u'lláh, speaking of God, explains he, the divine being, had been veiled in the ineffable sanctity of his exalted self, and will everlasting continue to be wrapped in the impenetrable mystery of his unknowable essence. 10,000 prophets, each a Moses, are thunderstruck upon the Sinai of their search of God's forbidding voice. Thou shalt never behold me, whilst a myriad messengers, each as great as Jesus, stand dismayed upon their heavenly thrones by the interdiction, mine essence thou shalt never apprehend. Thou bewildering to me, insignificant as I am, Baha'u'lláh, in his communion with God affirms, is the attempt to fathom the sacred depth of thy knowledge. How futile my efforts to visualize the magnitude of the power inherent in thine handiwork. The revelation of thine creative power, when I contemplate, O my God, the relationship that bendeth me to thee, he in yet another prayer revealed in his own handwriting testifies, I am moved to proclaim to all created things, verily I am God. And when I consider my own self, lo, I find it coarser than clay.
Excellently read, Auntie Mefesh. Thank you so much. Very, very good. So we're going to go through this one too in a little bit. Thank you. So we move to paragraph 40. Okay. Riaz John, if you could kindly read this one for us.
Paragraph 40. The door of the knowledge of the Ancient of Days. Baha'u'lláh further states in the Kitab-e-Iran, being thus closed in the face of all beings, he, the source of infinite grace, hath caused those luminous gems of holiness to appear out of the realm of the spirit in the noble form of the human temple, and be made manifest unto all men, that they may impart unto the world the mysteries of the unchangeable being, and tell of the subtleties of his imperishable essence. All the prophets of God His well-favored, his holy and chosen messengers are, without exception, the bearers of his names and the embodiments of his attributes. These tabernacles of holiness, these primal mirrors, which reflect the light of unfading glory, are but expressions of him who is the invisible of the invisibles.
Thank you, Rios John. Thank you so much. And our last paragraph, paragraph 41. Our dear Miss Yuda Miller, if you could kindly read this one for us.
That Baha'u'lláh should, notwithstanding the overwhelming intensity of his revelation, be regarded as essentially one of these manifestations of God, never to be identified with that invisible reality, the essence of divinity itself, is one of the major beliefs of our faith, a belief which should never be obscured and the integrity of which no one of its followers should allow to be compromised.
Excellent, excellent. So here we are, dear friends. This is our paragraph set for tonight that we're going to be studying. So paragraphs 36 through 41 are the ones that we just read. Okay. And it starts off as often, the beloved guardian, whenever he enters into a transitionary paragraph set, dearly beloved friends. What a wonderful how beloved guardian opens up these paragraphs. So he says, dearly beloved friends, enough has been said, and the quoted excerpts from the writings of the Blessed Bab, of Baha'u'lláh, and of Abdul-Baha are sufficiently numerous and varied to convince the conscientious reader. So what type of reader? You have to be first conscientious, meaning you're eager, you're searching, you're active. So if you read those paragraphs of the Blessed Bab, of Baha'u'lláh and Abdul-Baha, and you're conscientious, you're seriously searching, then what? This would be enough to convince you of the sublimity of this unique cycle in this world's religious history. So if you are serious and you're a serious student, a serious searcher of the truth, these paragraphs that the beloved guardian has presented would be sufficient to prove to you this unique cycle in the world's religious history. Then the beloved guardian says, it would be utterly impossible to over-exaggerate its significance, the revelation of Baha'u'lláh. It's impossible to over-exaggerate its significance or to overrate the influence it has exerted and which it must increasingly exert as its great system unfolds itself amidst the welter of a collapsing civilization. And if you recall from our study in Advent of Divine Justice, and as well as we coming up later in Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, there's twin simultaneous processes at work. Integration and disintegration, okay? And this process of integration is the building up of this fledgling Baha'i community, right? This per se nascent Baha'i community, which is the system of Baha'u'lláh, and then it's unfolding amidst the other process, the welter of a collapsing civilization, this process of disintegration. And so this civilization, the tottering civilization is another word, collapsing civilization here. All right. So then it was the next paragraph of Baha'u'lláh, incredible. So the beloved guardian now wants to utter a word of warning. Okay. So in the prior paragraphs, he's talked about the incredible revelation of Baha'u'lláh, how it has been not only foretold if you recall, it has been foretold in all the books of the past. Remember, the beloved guardian was quoting. He was quoting Isaiah, he was quoting Daniel, he was quoting Quran, he was quoting that this has been foretold by all the revelations of the past, this revelation of Baha'u'lláh. And he quoted the Blessed Bab, he quoted the writings from Baha'u'lláh, and he quoted Abdul Baha, as well as from the scriptures, quoting the incredibleness and of the station of this revelation of Baha'u'lláh. Then here in paragraph 37, he's now saying, step back, I want to utter a word of warning. Okay? And this word of warning is very important. Here the beloved guardian says, let no one meditating in the light of the aforequoted passages. Aforequoted means the passages that we have just written before, on the nature of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh, mistake its character or misconstrue the intent of its author. The divinity attributed to so great a being and the complete incarnation of the names and attributes of God in so exalted a person should, under no circumstances, be misconceived or misinterpreted. The human temple that has been made the vehicle of so overpowering a revelation must, if we be faithful to the tenets of our faith, ever remain entirely distinguished from that innermost spirit of spirits and eternal essence of essences, that invisible yet rational God, who, however much we extol the divinity of his manifestation on earth, can in no wise incarnate his infinite, his unknowable, his incorruptible, and all-embracing reality in the concrete, limited frame of a mortal being. A lot of words, but a lot of meaning here. So he's saying that you cannot encapsulate God, okay? It's not possible, okay? You cannot incarnate God. There's no such thing as an incarnation of the divinity, okay? Okay, that God is beyond, immensely beyond, okay? That that divinity attributed to so great a being and the complete incarnation of the names and attributes of God should under no circumstances be misconceived or misinterpreted. Such an important point that the beloved guardian here attributes at least 5 paragraphs so that it hammers it home. And then actually in the last paragraph that was read, actually directly ties it again to Baha'u'lláh and says, under no circumstances can we directly tie Baha'u'lláh to God in that sense and put them on the same station, okay? And here in this paragraph, it says, so crude and fantastic a theory of divine incarnation is as removed from and incompatible with the essentials of Baha'i belief. Okay, so why did the beloved guardian go to so much trouble and such putting all of this together? In the West, as well as in the East, they have this concept of God being incarnation of God. God, even in Christendom, they have the Holy Trinity, and God is incarnate. And so there is the Trinity, which is Jesus is, the Trinity, and one of them is that Jesus is God. Okay, and so this is inadmissible that the manifestation cannot be the incarnation of God himself. Okay, so that is this anthropomorphic conception of God. This is against Baha'i belief, the divine incarnation of the Lord. Okay, this is this is as the beloved guardian is saying, this is emphatically and repudiates this fallacy. This is incorrect. Okay, so moving on. So then the beloved guardian here is in paragraph 38, and we're going to go, as we always do, in much greater study in paragraph 38, now the beloved guardian is quoting from the Kitab-i-Iran, the book of certitude. He who in unnumbered passages claimed his utterance to be the voice of divinity, the call of God himself, right? So many times Baha'u'llah has said, my voice is the call of God himself, right? Thus solemnly affirms in the Kitab-i-Iran, to every discerning and illumined heart, it is evident that God, the unknowable essence, the divine being, is immeasurably exalted beyond every human attribute, such as corporeal existence, ascent and descent, egress and regress. He is and hath ever been veiled in the ancient eternity of his essence and will remain in his reality everlastingly hidden from the sight of men. He standeth exalted beyond and above all separation and union, all proximity, remoteness. God was alone. There was none else beside him, is a sure testimony of this truth. So here, to every discerning and illumined heart, it is evident that God, the unknowable essence, the divine being, is immeasurably exalted beyond every human attribute, such as corporeal existence. So even just the aspect of a body, physical creation, God is beyond all of these things, as he should be, right? Right? So the reality is, he standeth exalted beyond and above all separation and all union, okay? And then this incredible paragraph here, from time immemorial, Baha'u'llah speaking of God, explains, he, the divine being, hath been veiled in the ineffable sanctity of his exalted self, and will everlasting continue to be wrapped in the impenetrable mysteries of his unknowable essence. This is such a cool paragraph. This is the one that Auntie Mafash read. This is such a cool paragraph. This says, 10,000 prophets, each a Moses, are thunderstruck upon the Sinai of their search at God's forbidding voice. Thou shalt never behold me. Imagine the God standing at the top of the mountain and saying, thou shalt never behold me. This is why there's a thing called Sadratul Muntaha, the tree beyond which there is no passing. This is what it means. Sadratul Muntaha, the tree beyond which there is no passing. Meaning that is the point which even the manifestation of God cannot go beyond. And then beyond that is God. And so even the manifestation of God, there's a point that they cannot go beyond. And so this is where in paragraph 39, it says 10,000 prophets, each a Moses, are thunderstruck upon the Sinai of their search at God's forbidding voice. Thou shalt never behold me. Whilst a myriad messengers, each as great as Jesus, they stand dismayed upon their heavenly thrones by the interdiction, mine essence thou shalt never apprehend. The essence, and how bewildering to me, insignificant as I am, Baha'u'llah in his communion with God affirms, is the attempt to fathom the sacred depths of thy knowledge. This is Baha'u'llah, right? Even Baha'u'llah himself saying how he himself has in his communion with God is the attempt to fathom the sacred depth of thy knowledge, God's knowledge. How futile my efforts to visualize the magnitude of the power inherent in thine handiwork, the revelation of thy creative power. And when I contemplate, O my God, the relationship that bindeth me to thee, he in yet another prayer revealed in his own handwriting testifies, I am moved to proclaim to all created things, verily I am God, and when I consider my own self, lo, I find it coarser than clay. Wow. He's saying that when I reflect upon my own self, I am nothing, coarser than clay. I'm just dust. This is Baha'u'llah speaking. He says, when I reflect upon my own self, I am nothing. I'm just coarser than clay, like dust in your presence. And then In paragraph 40, the door of the knowledge of the Ancient of Days, Baha'u'lláh further states in the Kitabiyah, being thus closed in the face of all beings, he, the source of infinite grace, have caused those luminous gems of holiness to appear out of the realm of the spirit in the noble form of the human temple and be made manifest unto all men, that they may impart unto the world the mysteries of the unchangeable being and tell of the subtleties of his imperishable essence. So in this one paragraph right here, up to here, because this is coming straight from Kitabiyah, right? It's pretty much stating what the manifestation of God is. He's stating, being thus, so the door to God has been thus closed in the face of all beings. The source of infinite grace has been closed. But God hath caused those luminous gems of holiness, the manifestations of God to appear out of the realm of the spirit in the noble form of the human temple and be made manifest unto all men, that they may impart unto the world the mysteries of the unchangeable being and tell of the subtleties of his imperishable essence. All the prophets of God, his well-favored, his holy and chosen messengers, are, without exception, the bearers of his names and the embodiments of his attributes. So they're not, they are the bearers of his names and attributes. They're not the physical incarnation of God's innermost essence of essences. There's no such, that would be a fallacy, but they are, as a manifestation of God, the bearer of his names and the embodiment of his attributes. These tabernacles of holiness, these primal mirrors which reflect the light of unfading glory, they're just expressions of him, who is the invisible of the invisibles. Expressions. Okay? And then the last paragraph in this paragraph set that we're studying tonight is, again, the beloved guardian is emphasizing and re-emphasizing that Baha'u'lláh, the manifestation of God for this day and age, should, notwithstanding the overwhelming intensity of his revelation. Remember, all the way up to this point, the beloved guardian is hitting at home the incredible intensity of this revelation of Baha'u'lláh. Even though, notwithstanding the overwhelming intensity of this revelation of Baha'u'lláh, be regarded as essentially one of these manifestations of God. He's just saying Baha'u'lláh is essentially one of these manifestations of God, and never to be identified with that invisible reality, the essence of divinity itself. And then the beloved guardian is saying, this is one of the major beliefs of our faith, a belief which should never be obscured and the integrity of which no one of its followers should allow to be compromised. So there, the beloved guardian is saying, this is a fundamental truth of our faith, right? And those are, if you recall, scrolling back, I think it was in the very first few paragraphs of the advent of divine justice. It says what the purpose of this is to strive to obtain a clear picture of what the fundamental truths of our revelation is. And this is one of the purposes of why the beloved guardian wrote Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, to have a clear picture of who the Blessed Bab is, who Baha'u'lláh is, who Abdul Baha is, and what this faith stands for. And here in this paragraph set, he is now giving you a clear picture of the relationship of the manifestations of God to God, the unknowable essence itself. Okay? Okay. And in this section of the letter, the beloved guardian is stressing that Baha'u'lláh, though manifesting the names and attributes of God, is to be considered as clearly distinct from God, whose infinite and unknowable essence can in no wise be incarnated in the physical frame of a mortal man, despite the overwhelming splendor of Baha'u'llah's revelation. He is never to be identified with that invisible reality, the essence of divinity itself. His station is that of the manifestation of God for our time. So this is the station of Baha'u'lláh. His station is that of the manifestation of God for our time, who has renewed, emphasized, and expanded the spiritual truths revealed in the previous revelations. Okay, so these are the key points in this paragraph set. It is impossible for man to know the reality of God. The knowledge of the attributes is achieved through the knowledge of the manifestation of God. So when in Kitab Akhdas, it says the purpose, in paragraph 2, it says that we should know God, right? Right? How do you know God? It is through his attributes, right? Because the manifestation of God is manifesting those attributes of God. So when he says, know him and worship him, know him and worship him, and it's to recognize him, know him and worship him. So it's the knowledge of God, the knowledge of the manifestation of God. So if know him means to bring the knowledge of God, meaning the attributes of God, not only up here. What does it mean to know him? Meaning just I have studied all the books of love. I understand love. No, it means to know him means here. Bring it home, as they say. So know him, bring it into your heart, internalize. Know him and worship. Worship means to bring it into your life's practice. Right? Know him and worship him. Okay? The human temple of Baha'u'lláh is entirely distinguished from God. Okay? So we can different station, different plane, completely per se on a different level. The manifestations of God have two separate natures and stations. And we're going to talk about this, and this is all from the writings. Baha'u'lláh, despite the intensity of his revelation, is yet another manifestation of God, with a reality completely different from the reality of God. All right, here we go, dear friends. Let's get through this. Everyone doing well? Any questions so far or any thoughts? Okay. So, dear friends, in paragraph 37, the beloved guardian Shaykh Effendi indicates that despite the statements cited in the previous paragraphs on the greatness and the significance of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh, he is, Baha'u'lláh, is entirely distinguished from God. Immeasurably exalted art thou, O Lord. Okay, so he's entirely distinguished from God. This is such a, it's for a Baha'i growing up as a Baha'i, you know, and being taught the faith, it seems very obvious because, you know, you're growing up as a Baha'i, you've heard, you know, learned the faith, but if you haven't been understood this and then it's reading the writings for the first time, you may suddenly think, wow, Baha'u'lláh seems like he is God incarnate. And especially in the early days, they even mistook Abdul Baha as God incarnate, as Christ incarnate, as the return of Christ, as they thought that even Abdul Baha was a messenger of God. And so here, the beloved guardian is and being absolutely clear what the station of the manifestation of God is, what the manifestation of God's relation is to God, and how Baha'u'lláh, how his relationship is also to God, and saying that he is also a manifestation of God in his own right. So he's being very clear, and so that there can be, as they say, no ambiguity in this. Okay. So here, this is from the Blessed Bab. Immeasurably exalted art thou, O Lord, protect us from what lieth in front of us and behind us, above our heads, on our right and on our left, below our feet, and every other side to which we are exposed. Verily, thy protection over all things is unfailing. That is a cool prayer from the Blessed Bob. So, but this is where the Blessed Bob says, immeasurably exalted art thou, O Lord, right? The Blessed Bob addressing God. So we carry on, paragraph 29. Baha'u'lláh announces, naught is seen in my temple, but the temple of God, and in my beauty, but his beauty, and in my being, but his being, and in myself, but his self, and in my movement, but his movement, and in my acquiescence, but his acquiescence, and in my pen, but his pen, the mighty, the all praise. There hath not been in my soul, but the truth, and in myself not could be seen, but God. The beloved guardian explains that the divinity attributed to Baha'u'lláh represents only the incarnation of the names and attributes of God in the temple of the manifestation of God, not his reality. So it's the names and attributes of God are now manifest, but not the innermost essence of essences. This would be a fallacy if you say this a manifestation is of God, is God incarnate. This would be a fallacy. A manifestation of God is manifesting the names and attributes of God. The reality of God is infinite and cannot manifest itself in a mortal body. The beloved guardian then cites some statements from Baha'u'lláh in the paragraphs 38 through 40 to illustrate the nature of this concept. And here is a quote from His Holiness Abdul Baha. He says, "He is God. How can we render thee thanks, O Lord? Thy bounties are endless, and our gratitude cannot equal them. How can the finite utter praise of the infinite? Unable are we to voice our thanks for thy favors, and in utter powerlessness we turn wholly to thy kingdom, beseeching the increase of thy bestowals and bounties. Thou art the giver, the bestower, the Almighty." Abdul Baha.
Ihsan, I do have a question.
Please.
When they say like incarnate word or the word made in flesh or something like that.
Yes.
Is that correct? Can the word be incarnate?
Yes,
The word of
absolutely.
God?
Yes. And the word itself is logos. That's another word. It's the word becoming flesh. And so I will actually send a great articles on this. This is actually George Townsend, when he was talking, he actually wrote a whole book actually on this very theme, on the word becoming flesh, and talking about that this is the word of God. The manifestations of God are the word of God, and they are the ones that become per se flesh. They are the voice pieces of God. And so it's a very interesting, and I'll send you a wonderful article to the class on that. That's a great, and that's why in the Gospels it says that they are the word of God, they are the mouthpiece of God, they are the, and all of that, because that's really what the manifestations of God are. They are the voice of God. But they are not God. You understand? And that's the difference. Okay, so we're moving on. This is a great subject. And this is as they say, one of the major fundamental truths of our faith. Okay, here we go. Reference to the station of divinity of the manifestations of God is not exclusive to the Baha'i faith and can be observed in all the holy books. But very importantly, some misunderstood or misinterpreted it, okay? But it's there in all the writings. In this connection, Baha'u'lláh indicates that the attributes of Godhead, divinity, supreme singleness, and inmost essence have been and are applicable to all the mouthpieces of God, okay? So this is in all the writings. The attributes of God, divinity, supreme singleness, and inmost essence have been and are applicable to all the mouthpieces of God, because that's what they are. They're the mouthpieces of God. Every manifestation of God has a double nature. A human nature pertaining to the world of matter, and a spiritual nature born of the substance of God himself. Okay? This is from Baha'u'lláh, the Gleanings. So, two stations, double nature. A manifestation of God is endowed with a double station. The first station, which is related to his innermost reality, representeth him as one whose voice is the voice of God himself. Okay, so this is the first station, as if his voice is the voice of God. And in one of his tablets, Baha'u'lláh provides 3 examples from the revelation of Muhammad to illustrate this first station. From an Islamic tradition attributed to Muhammad, manifold and mysterious is my relationship with God. I am he, himself, he is I, myself, except that I am, and he is that he is. That is, some gets confusing, but if you pay attention to the words, I am.
So that means in the next world, the manifestation of God is to be in their spiritual nature. They may be related to God, and then maybe they see him, or what's the spiritual station of the next world for them?
The manifestations of God themselves, okay? First of all, these are concepts. We are so far removed even from the manifestation of the manifestations of God, okay? To even try to attempt to understand the station of the manifestations of God, we're only turning to the writings of the beloved guardian and what does it say itself right here, okay? And to even ponder on what the station of the manifestations of God is, that is beyond us, okay? But we know that there is, in the words of the beloved guardian, there is incomparable. You cannot compare the station of the manifestation of God to that innermost essences of essences, namely that unknowable essence is God. You cannot compare them. Just like you cannot compare, you cannot compare, an apple and an orange. You say they're fruit, but they're completely different, okay? In the sense, the unknowable essences and a manifestation of God. They're just on a different level, okay? And we take it as is. That's what the words of the beloved guardian is, okay? And then here's another example of this first station, okay? That Baha'u'lláh is giving an example, okay? Of this, that they are the mouthpiece of God. Okay, and this is from the Quran. It says, and in a like manner, the words arise, O Muhammad, for lo, the lover and the beloved are joined together and made one in thee. So the lover and the beloved, okay, God. The lover is the vehicle, and the beloved is the essence, the innermost essence, and they are joined together and made one in the form of a manifestation of God. You see, isn't that cool? The lover, meaning the individual that is searching for the beloved, and then they're joined together and made one. And that is what a manifestation of God is. There is no distinction whatsoever between thee and them, except that they are thy servants. It's very, if it's, this concept is so incredibly hard to understand for, but it's very simple too, okay? If you look at a mirror, you would say, that is the sun is reflecting in that mirror, so that's the sun. And you would say, look at that mirror and say, I'm blinded by that image. That's the sun. And you would say, no, that's not the sun. That's a perfect reflection of the sun. But that's not the sun. It's just a mirror, because it's perfectly capturing the innermost essences, which would be, as the beloved guardian is saying, the mouthpiece of the Lord. He is capturing the words and the attributes of the Lord perfectly. But that mirror is not God. You see what it says? And so that is what a manifestation of God is. They are the perfect representation of the word and mouthpiece of their Lord. Okay? There are also a number of verses in the Quran that attributes the deeds of Muhammad to God. Okay? So this has made some Muslims confused. Not all Muslims, actually, most Muslims understand the text. But some Muslims get confused because they might think Muhammad is God. Very few, okay? But on one occasion, a large group of the followers swore to allegiance to Muhammad by placing their hands over each other's, as was the customary at the time. The hand of Muhammad was placed on top of them all. The following verse was revealed regarding this event. In truth, they who plighted fealty unto thee really plighted that fealty unto God. The hand of God was over their hands. You see that? The hand of God was over their hands. So demonstrating that, because this was a common practice of showing loyalty. They would bond their hands together. And then Muhammad placed his hand on top of all of them and says, the hand of God was over all of their hands. Okay, so this is from the Quran. And so this verse pretty much was demonstrating that where Muhammad is saying, I am God, that sense, that dual nature of him, his speech. But, obviously, Muhammad is not God. He's the mouthpiece of God. I just wanted to be absolutely clear on that. And in another instance, during the Battle of Badr, Muhammad fought with 1,000 men against 3,000 Meccans. The infidels were soundly defeated, and consequently, this verse was revealed from God. So it was not you who slew them, but God slew them. Those shafts were God's, not thine. So here again, this is Muhammad is now saying that it was acting on behalf of God, it was God who slew those infidels. So this is the double nature, and this is the demonstration of the first station, that they act as the mouthpiece of God. And I was just quoting some instances from the Quran. Now we go to the second station, and I obviously could have pulled so many more of these. I just wanted to pull a few to reference this first station. But this is, now we'll go to the second station, which is that human station, okay? The second station is that human station, exemplified by the following verses from the Quran, okay? The first one is, I am but a man like you, and say, praise be to my Lord. I am more than a man, an apostle. The divinity attributed to a manifestation of God is applicable to his spiritual nature. That is the first station. So here he is saying just, I am a man but like you. Okay, so this is his second station. And here's a few more, and I'll get my dear friend Riaz John to read these. Okay.
About this station of divinity, of manifestation of God, double nature and double station. Say, O Muhammad, I am only a man like you, to whom it has been revealed that your God is but one God. That's from the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
And from Baha'u'lláh, O King, I was but a man like others, asleep upon my couch, when lo, the breezes of the all-glorious were wafted over me and taught me the knowledge of all that hath been. This thing is not from me, but from one who is almighty and all-knowing.
Excellently read, Riaz John. Thank you. So in both these paragraphs that Riaz John read, you could see the manifestation of God is stating that I am just like a man. I am an individual. And the one from Muhammad, I'm only a man like you. And Baha'u'lláh saying, I was just a man like others, asleep upon my couch. But then this station, and this, when lo, the breezes of the all glorious were wafted over me. This is where the individual of Mirza Hussein Ali, the individual, okay, that human element, connected at that level with that innermost essence of Baha'u'lláh, the most great spirit, okay? And that intercourse happened at that point in time in the Siyah Chal, okay, in 1852. And that where he beheld that maiden, okay? And that event per se was when that individual of Mirza Hussein Ali had that recognition of his divine station. See, this is it. That's why the Baha'i dispensation of started at 1852. You see, because of that point of recognition of that divine essence of essences. And so, okay. And here's another one. No, we shall not even believe in your mounting until you can send to us a book that we could read. Say, glory to my Lord. Am I anything but a man, a messenger? What kept men back from belief when guidance came to them was nothing but this, they said. Has Allah sent a man like us to be his messenger? You know, so this is from the Quran. Has Allah sent us a man like us to be his messenger? And there's even, this is just pulling from, Quran. And there's several cases, obviously, in the Gospels. And there's one a very famous and common one. It says, where they were asking, who is this Jesus? I know his father. I know where he came from. He came from this town of Bethlehem, and I know his background. He was, and there's nothing good that has come from Bethlehem. He was a carpenter. He comes from a carpenter, and so. And reality is, they were looking at his physical reality, right? His personage, that station of human reality, and that is true because they have two natures. But they were also, per se, missing the boat on that other nature, that divine nature, that spiritual nature, the most great spirit that animates their reality. And for all practical purposes becomes the driver, and so often becomes in a sense unmistakable. You cannot, when you talk about Baha'u'lláh or His Holiness Jesus Christ or Muhammad, you cannot, it's hard to even talk about their physical reality, and just talk about their corporeal body per se, because that essence has manifested the whole reality of the being. You see what I'm saying? And say that manifestation of God, that most great spirit, has completely become the full driver of the reality of Mirza Hussein Ali. You see what I'm saying? And even though there's some passages of Baha'u'lláh where he is so taken, overwhelmed with sorrows or pains or anguish, and in his writings you can hear that he's writing as an individual, as a per se a human, and you can feel his sorrows and his pains. For example, I just share an example, is the fire tablet. Okay, very simple. The fire tablet, you have it in your prayer books, and you can feel the pain and sorrows and anguish of Baha'u'lláh, and that as an individual, I'm reading, when I read the fire tablet, I can see this, the first station, the second station of that human reality, surrounded by pains, constant torture. I mean, having his half-brother poisoning him, and he's being banished and exiled and tortured and gone place to place. And then the second station comes at the very end, and that most great spirit suddenly talking to his physical reality and saying, "I have brought thee to champion the worlds," right? And suddenly he feels the victory and the burning, fire within him, and then it's like Baha'u'lláh is suddenly re-energized. You see, what a cool, but most of the tablet is, he is surrounded by pains and anguish. And so it's literally like he's starting out this tablet in this this station of human reality, and then ends with the most great spirit communicating with him. I just wanted to share that insight. I don't know, but this is that double nature, the double station of the manifestation of God. All right. Any thoughts? I was just sharing my thoughts. Anyone have any thoughts on what I've said so far? Yes, Rios John, as always. Wonderful. Please. Cannot hear you, Rios John. I don't know what happened. Oh, no. Oh, you're muted. That's what happened.
Sorry.
There you go.
yeah, I always forget. In one of the initial slides of tonight's class, maybe it was about paragraph 36,
okay,
37 or 38, Shaykh Effendi touches upon this very briefly, where he talks about the human temple stepped into this world from the realms of the spirit. I mean, the temple of the manifestation of God in the human temple stepped into this world from the realm of spirit. The two aspects there, very brief. First, it's a human temple,
right?
But he appears, he steps into this world from the realm of spirit, and that spirit, of course, is the Holy Spirit. That is a reference to his duality, to the duality of the manifestation of God. This is one of those initial slides. I don't remember which one.
Excellent, Rios John. There was, I'm going to send to the class, there was a wonderful compilation that the National Teaching Committee did years ago on the worlds of God. And it's such a cool compilation. And it hasn't been updated, obviously, in years, but it's I'll send it to the class, and you can find it obviously online. But it's and I'll send it. But it goes through question after question, as well as has awesome pictures that have been to illustrate these very profound subjects on the worlds of God. And it's I'll send it to the class. So absolutely, Rios John, this aspect of the spirit that you mentioned, that made me think about this compilation. So I'm going to send that to you so you can see this. It's very good.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
I also wanted to point out that when we humans are born into this world, we are faced with a new world, a new I mean, for the newborn is born into this world and is facing a whole new set of realities. Now, Shaykh Effendi in designing the architecture of the Shrine of the Bab on Mount Carmel in Haifa, on each corner of that building, he placed a symbol, a graphic symbol. That graphic symbol is one designed by Abdul Baha and is placed on the ring, the Baha'i ring that we wear every day. This graphic symbol, I feel personally, is a graphic picture of the universe we have been born into. It has 3 levels. At the top, the world of God above all. Then second level, the kingdom of revelation, and at the bottom, the kingdom of creation. And then there is the vertical line, the world of the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, that connects all 3. And I feel that's like a graphic of our place in the universe. It's to remind us where do we stand in existence. We are at the level of the world of creation, and this helps us, at least for me personally. Where am I? Where am I, and what else is there?
Right.
So this is very helpful for me personally. Thank you.
Excellent and wonderful to bring this the Esma Azam, this most great name, back, because this is why that is the injunction. It's not a commandment, it's an injunction. For the friends to wear the Baha'i ring is so that, as you said, Riaz John, to remind them, not only of their place in the hierarchy of things, but also to remind them to live the Baha'i life, So that is one of the reasons also to wear the Baha'i ring is to, as I just share this anecdote. Every morning, before I even do anything, my Baha'i ring goes on, and it goes, and I cannot, you could ask my wife, I can't do anything without my Baha'i ring unless it's on, and if I only take it off to go to sleep, and then it's back on, because the reason is, it helps me focus on my daily life. And it's one of, I don't want to say it's a crux or anything, but it's there. And it's there as a constant reminder of what is important, as dear Riaz John said, I am at the very lowest of low, that humble line at the very bottom of nothingness. And my entire goal in my entire life is to prostrate myself you know, so that my life will be worthy, so to make mention of him. That's it, you know, and through my life, through everything that I do, I hope to make a worthy impact on people around me and society, and so that he will be happy with me. That's it, you know, that's it. I mean, eventually we'll all eventually return to the dust, whatever, you know, but as long as our last breath, he will be happy with us. That's it. Very simple. And we stay firm in the covenant. Say, you know. So we move on, dear friends. We got a few more slides tonight. It's getting to 8:12. This is some more incredible concept. Because this is at the very heart and nature of the faith, is this fundamental truth. The nature of divinity attributed to the manifestations of God has been further explained and clarified in the writings of Baha'u'lláh as well as Abdul-Baha. And this is coming in Epistle to the Son of the Wolf. And I encourage every one of you, if you haven't opened up, this is the last major work of Baha'u'lláh, Epistle to the Son of the Wolf. If you haven't read it, go read it. It's a challenging work of Baha'u'lláh. It's written to Sheikh Muhammad Taghi Najafi, this absolutely terrible individual, to say the least. He was an individual that was very heinous, cruel, and savage, killed the beloved of the martyrs, as well as the king of the martyrs, and he was he enjoyed the pleasure of killing, was this sheikh. And Baha'u'lláh wrote this incredible tablet to him in this epistle, and imploring him to be fair in his judgment on this new revelation of Baha'u'lláh. And be fair and hear it and recognize the truths and verities of what this faith stood for. So that is the Epistle to the Son of the Wolf. Incredible. And if you've heard this, be generous in prosperity and thankful in adversity. That is actually a tablet to his son, Baha'u'llah's son, Badi'u'llah. And it's there in Epistle to the Son of the Wolf also. Because Epistle to the Son of the Wolf, as it's Baha'u'llah's last major work, and Baha'u'lláh with his, you know, incredible manifestation of God ability, he chose the choicest works through his revelation and re-revealed them in Epistle to the Son of the Wolf. So you'll see in Epistle to the Son of the Wolf might be an extract. Oh, that's in Gleanings. That was revealed in 1850, early on in his revelation. Oh, that was a quote from Kitab Iran. But so Baha'u'lláh in Epistle to the Son of the Wolf, he re-revealed it in Epistle to the Son of the Wolf, because these are from his choicest fruits of his whole revelation, and he pulled it there. It's very amazing, Epistle to the Son of the Wolf. So he describes this station, okay, this station of the nature of divinity as this station in which one dieth to himself and liveth in God, okay? So this station of divinity, which a manifestation of God is in, right? They are dying of themselves and living in God. Divinity, whenever I mention it, indicated my complete and absolute self-effacement. This is the station in which I have no control over mine own weal or woe, nor over my life, nor over my resurrection. So as I mentioned earlier, when I said it is hard to talk about the manifestation of God as the corporeal body in that sense, the physical reality of the individual, it is because they have per se, their physical reality has completely given their complete control to their spiritual reality. And so in that sense, their physical reality have dieth to themselves and they are complete living in God. Do you understand? They have completely given their whole reality to their spiritual reality, and they are completely, absolutely self-effaced. Their physical reality is of no importance, and they have given themselves 100% to the most great spirit. Okay, and let us have another reader, and our next reader is Miss Donna. If you could so kindly read this one for us.
In the Kitab-i-Gan, Baha'u'lláh explains that the state of divinity, the human station of a manifestation of God, is obliterated in the face of God, and hence there is no mention of his self. The divine attributes and names are perfectly manifested in his temple and fully overshadow his human station. In fact, the manifestation of God is exhibiting absolute servitude when asserting the station of godhood, as mentioned by the Imam Sadiq, the sixth Imam of Shia Islam. Servitude is a substance, the essence of which is divinity.
The essence of which is divinity. So the essence of servitude is divinity. And so Abdul Baha, the servant of Baha'u'lláh. So the essence of Abdul Baha is divinity in itself, you know, because he is, everything about Abdul Baha but we'll talk about the station of Abdul Baha. He is Sirullah, he's the mystery of God. But this is a cool, this is from chapter 1, John, verse 1 through 5. It says, whatever is good and perfect comes down to us from God, our Father. Whatever is good is coming from our Lord, our Father, who created all the lights in the heavens. He never changes or casts a shifting shadow. So God cannot cast a shadow. He only creates good, nothing bad. So God is light. In him, there is no darkness at all. So if God is light, if God is like the flame, if you look at the shadow, there is no shadow to the God in that sense. You see? If you look at, you see that? But man, which is the physical reality, has a shadow, but there is no shadow to the light because God is light. You see that? Isn't that cool? I thought it was an interesting concept, and because there is no shadow to light. Abdul Baha provides a further explanation on the condition of self-effacement of a manifestation of God when soaring in the domain of divinity. Of such a one, of such a prophet and messenger, we can say that the light of divinity with the heavenly perfection dwell in him. If we claim that the sun is seen in the mirror, we do not mean that the sun itself has descended from the holy heights of his heaven and entered into the mirror. This is impossible. The divine nature is seen in the manifestation, and its light and splendor are visible in extreme glory. And this was the analogy I was pretty much slaughtering in my attempt to restate. But this is the beautiful words of Abdul Baha. Here, Abdul Baha stating that the manifestations of God are the perfect reflection and image of God, but they are not God. They're just the reflection and image of God and reflecting it in its perfect perfection. Yes, Riaz John, please.
I mean, this graphic that you have right now, that we see in this class at this time, this is a perfect graphic or example of that symbol that Abdul Baha designed. It has three levels. There is God, and then there is the manifestation of God at the second level, and the third is the world of creation, and the Holy Spirit is the communication or the influence among these three levels. And Shawq Effendi, who designed the shrine of the Bab at the spiritual center, of the faith on Mount Carmel, Haifa, on each of the four corners of that structure, which he designed, and instructed the architect on each corner, this graphic, he placed this graphic on each corner of that structure. I feel as a reminder. So when we go and visit the center of our faith, the center of this new revelation, the spiritual center of this revelation, there we see graphically, Shaykh Effendi is placing in front of us who we are, where we are, and what are we witnessing. Our place in the universe is clear. He has placed it on each corner in a graphic, because we are, it's something we can apprehend. So Abdul Baha, knowing our limitations, he has created this graphic so that we can find ourselves, our place in the universe. So this is extremely, I feel personally, and it reflects this submissive and position of servitude. When we look at this structure and what Shaykh Effendi has placed for us in front of us to look at, we see exactly our place of servitude right there. It's right there. There's no equivocation. There's no equivocation. Shaykh Effendi is showing us who we are, where we are.
Excellent point, dear Riaz-Jan. Thank you. Very insightful. All right. And a few more slides for tonight. In paragraph 40, His Holiness Baha'u'lláh declares the door of the knowledge of the Ancient of Days being thus closed in the face of all beings. The knowledge of the manifestations of God is equal to the knowledge of God. So the door is closed. The door of the knowledge of the Ancient of Days being thus closed in the face of all beings. And some of these graphics, you see these look like older graphics. I pulled these from that compilation. So I'm going to send that to all of you. It's really insightful. And so I encourage you to enjoy it. So in some answer questions, His Holiness Abdul Baha explains, there are two kinds of knowledge: the knowledge of the essence of a thing and the knowledge of its qualities. A human by nature cannot acquire knowledge about the essence of anything. Our knowledge is limited only to the attributes of things. The essence of a thing is known through its qualities. Otherwise, it is unknown and hidden. So here in this illustration, which is pretty cool illustration, which is in this compilation, is a man, okay? And then this man attains human spiritual awareness, okay? That's human spiritual awareness. And that's kind of like the ultimate that you can achieve, okay? Human spiritual awareness. But a prophet is on a different level, okay? They have divine awareness, okay? They're on a different level, but they are not a deity. They're not God, okay? They have divine awareness and of the greater world, and their awareness and knowledge of the essence of things are at a much greater level. I know it's a very simplistic graphic and on that level, but it's just so that you can see their awareness of the greater world, which is the spiritual world, which we're talking about, the greater world. They have knowledge of that. Humanity has awareness of the lesser world, which is the physical, corporeal world. And how we attain even greater understanding of even the corporeal world is through the manifestations of God. You know, and so that is also even through spiritual awareness, which is very interesting. And so our understanding even of this physical world, our insights, our imagination and intuition, all our all come through this spiritual awareness. It will give us greater understandings, even of this, per se, lesser world. And just a few more slides. An incomparably greater limitation also applies to our knowledge of God. It is impossible for us to learn about the reality of God. Abdu'l-Baha emphasizes that as things can only be known by their qualities and not by their essence, it is certain that the divine reality is unknown with regard to its attributes. And this is from Some Answer Questions. A direct knowledge of the attributes of God is also impossible for human beings due to major differences that exist between the nature and reality of humanity and the reality of God. And in Some Answer Questions, Abdu'l-Baha explains such variances. God is the pre-existent reality, whereas the human is the phenomenal reality. This implies that God is ancient and eternal, contrary to the way God has created the human. God is infinite, whereas the human is finite. The finite cannot perceive the infinite. An example is the relationship between a drop of water and the ocean. A drop of water cannot understand the complexity and the nature of the ocean. And there is a difference of condition and degree of existence between the human and God. For example, plants and animals are at different degrees of existence in the physical world. The plants, the trees, whatever progress they may make, cannot conceive of the power of sight or the powers of the other senses. The animal cannot imagine the condition of man, that is to say, his spiritual powers. They're at all different levels. So this is just here Abdu'l-Baha explaining that as humans, we're just completely different. We cannot comprehend God. And every created thing in the whole universe is but a door leading into his knowledge, a sign of his sovereignty, a revelation of his names, a symbol of his majesty, a token of his power, a means of admittance into his straight path. This is one of the most beautiful quotes. And for anyone that ever thinks, says, Ehsan, I'm, an agnostic or atheist or anything, I don't believe in God. This quote is so comforting. Everything in this whole universe is a sign, a door leading to God. And if you have eyes, you shall see. If you have ears, you shall hear. If you have a heart to recognize, you will recognize. If you're looking at a cat, you will see the signs of God. If you're looking at a dog, you will see the signs of God. If you're looking at a tree, you will see the signs of God, because everything in this whole universe, everything is a sign of our Lord. And this is, but if you do not have the eyes and you're not looking, just like knock and the door shall be opened. If you're not looking or knocking or recognizing the signs that are right in front of you, you'll say, I don't see God. There's no God. And here Baha'u'lláh is saying everything is a sign of God. It's just right there in front of you. And then Abdu'l-Baha states, the knowledge of the attributes is also proportioned to the capacity and power of man. It is not absolute. Philosophy consists in comprehending the reality of things as they exist, according to the capacity and the power of man. It is not absolute. All that man is able to understand are the attributes of divinity, the radiance of which appears and is visible in the worlds and souls. So here is a very interesting picture. This picture is saying of different levels of human consciousness. What goes on above the ears develops human thoughts and feelings. So in this funny illustration is showing that an individual's spiritual progress, okay, showing a spiritual progress through their acquisition of the attributes of divinity, meaning they're acquiring these divine attributes in their life and through the knowledge of God, okay? And through their acquisition of the knowledge of God, that's why their heads are getting bigger and bigger. This is through acquiring the knowledge of God, which is that knowledge meaning the qualities and attributes of God. They're acquiring them into themselves. And this is another funny illustration that's in this compilation on the worlds of God done by the National Teaching Committee. Tesfaye, I hear you ready to say something. Go for it.
You know what, I want to say something about the knowledge is to be that a lot of people, they have a lot of academic knowledge, but they don't have the sincerity for the morality of this religious knowledge. So if they don't have that, according to the Guardian, that they don't have any room for this spiritual world, because the sincerity is the most important thing. Even you are declared become Baha'i, that every Baha'i is not directly, there is no direct path to go to the Upper Kingdom in the next world. Because of our spiritual degrees, we differ when we go up. But here, the Baha'is, we are all thinking Upper Kingdom, Upper Kingdom, Upper Kingdom. But that is not for all of us. Divided according to our spiritual nature, the degrees, the knowledge of that, and our sincerity is to be determined to go to the Upper Kingdom.
You're absolutely right, dear Tesfaye. In fact, this is such an important point that you brought up on sincerity. I actually gave a talk at a conference on this very subject of sincerity, that it's the beloved guardian, His Holiness Abdul-Baha Baha'u'lláh, has said that this is the touchstone, the cornerstone of what the faith stands for is sincerity. How can you, this is what judges truth from falsehood, is if you are truly sincere. And it's such an important subject. You're absolutely spot on, dear Tesfaye, that this is the mark of a true Baha'i is sincerity. And so I have one more slide and then we'll close it down for tonight. And this is the slide that I wanted to share with you. God in every age manifests his attributes in a special individual so that humanity can acquire knowledge of him as far as it is able within the limitations of its existence. This, in essence, this one line is progressive revelation, that one line. In other words, the bounties, splendors, and attributes of God are reflected in the manifestations of God. And in this age, the knowledge of the bounties, splendors, and attributes of Baha'u'lláh is the same as the knowledge of God. Baha'u'lláh clearly describes this concept in one of his tablets. These tabernacles of holiness, these primal mirrors which reflect the light of unfading glory, are but expressions of him who is the invisible of the invisibles. By the reflection of these gems of divine virtue, all the names and attributes of God, such as knowledge and power, sovereignty and dominion, mercy and wisdom, glory, bounty, and grace, are made manifest. So these names and attributes of God are manifested in the manifestations of God, perfectly the image of God. These are per se incarnated. The names and attributes of God are incarnated in that most great spirit, Baha'u'lláh. And one in this day and age. In another age, his name was Jesus Christ. So these are the perfect incarnation of these names and attributes. There we are, dear friends. That was our last slide for tonight, capturing this paragraph set. So any questions for tonight? Thoughts, insights?
I have a
Oh.
question.
Yes, Miss Luann.
Where would we find your talk about the
I will
actual?
send it to the class too. I will send that also to the class. Of course. Excellent. Very good and wonderful to see all of you tonight. And who would like to share a closing prayer so we can all enjoy the rest of our evening?
I have one.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much, Miss Luann. And good to see you, Miss Darla. Okay. Thank you, Miss Luann.
O God, my God, praise be unto thee for kindling the fire of divine love in the holy tree on the summit of the loftiest mount, that tree which is neither of the east nor the west, that fire which blazed out till the flame of it soared upward to the concourse on high, and from it those realities caught the light of guidance and cried out, verily have we perceived a fire on the slope of Mount Sinai. O God, my God, increase thou this fire as day followeth day, till the blast of it setteth in the motion of all the earth. O God, my Lord, kindle the light of thy love in thy every heart. Breathe unto men's souls the spirit of thy knowledge. Gladden their breasts with the verses of thy oneness. Call thou to light those who dwell in their tombs. Warn thou the prideful. Make happiness worldwide. Send down thy crystal waters, and in the assemblage of manifest splendors, pass around the cup which is tempered at the camphor fountain. Verily, thou art the giving, the forgiving, the ever bestowing. Verily, thou art the merciful, the compassionate. Abdu'l-Baha.
Thank you, Miss Luann, and thank you, every one of you. Every one of you have a wonderful, wonderful week. I will send out, as always, the recording and everything else that I've said that I will send out is to accompany the materials, and as well as your homework for next week. Okay, and have a wonderful, enjoyable night. Good
All
night,
right.
everyone.
Have a good one. Thank you. So, Ehsan, is there any conferences coming up about the 9-year